Okay, so this is one of those movies that makes it difficult to talk about in any kind of review sense because the plot has a lot of, I won't say twists and turns, but the plot takes some interesting directions. And it's one of those films that you feel like if you're going to talk about it, which is what I do, you're going to have to talk about those twists and turns. And, you know, I work very hard in certain things to remain spoiler-free. And even though I don't think this thing is going to be, you know, a huge, like an Avengers-style, romp, judging by the fact that, it's opening night and there were 3 people in the theater, I still think that you should try to respect folks who want to stay spoiler-free. And it's not like the spoilers in this are like, huge things. It turns out, one of them was really a ghost the whole time, or, aliens did it, or some shit like that. It's just this film relies very heavily on the emotional journey, and the revelations that come out are some pretty big emotional gut punches. So if you want to stay spoiler free, I'll just tell you here at the beginning, I'm doing this again, something I've never done, and I don't think I want to do it, make a habit of it, but I'm going to tell you up front, I'm looking at a B- on this one. I thought it was one of the better ones I've seen recently, but it has some issues with it that kind of drop the grade down. So there it is, right there out front. That's what's going on. So from here on out, if you're watching, then I'm going to talk spoilers. So you need to be aware of that. All right. So there it is. And everyone else is going, why doesn't he just do this all the time instead of making me listen to 20-some minutes of his ranting? Because I like to talk. All right, anyway. So, let's get into the review proper. So, after the wedding, if you haven't heard of it, which, again, judging by the number of people in the theater, you probably haven't, this small little film starring Michelle Williams, Julianne Moore, and Billy Crudup, where Michelle Williams runs an orphanage in India, and a American businesswoman played by Julianne Moore is looking to invest like a huge sum of money into the orphanage, but there's this criteria that Michelle Williams has to go and meet her in person. So she does, and Julianne Moore says, well, we don't have time to talk about this now. Come to my daughter's wedding, and we can get to know each other. And it turns out, if you watch the trailers, all you see is that it turns out that Michelle Williams and Julianne Moore's husband, excuse me, as played by Billy Crudup, are, have a history. So from the trailers, you're looking at it and going, oh shit, well, they had an affair or something like that. We've seen this and all that. But that's the first of the emotional gut punches. That is actually not the secret. Well, it kind of is the secret, but not really. What it turns out is that the daughter getting married is not Julianne Moore's biological daughter. It's Michelle Williams' biological daughter. That she and Billy Crudup knew each other when they were much younger. She got pregnant. She gave the baby up for adoption, and he went and got the child after she had run off and raised it. So that's where our first big hullabaloo comes in. So now this family is thrown into upheaval because now there is, the daughter's biological mother's in the picture, and there's history with her and the husband, and it's just this whole thing. But then, so here's where the second emotional gut punch is. So during all this, Julianne Moore is still trying to, she's going to say, well, I was going to give your organization $2 million. I'm going to set it up so I give you $20 million over the course of however many years. But the key is, the catch is you have to live in New York from now on. You can't go back to India. And Michelle Williams is like, what? What? Well, you must want something. You're a horrible person because you're rich and blah, blah, blah. But it turns out, spoiler alert number 2, that Julianne Moore is dying of unspecified illness number 42. They never actually say what she's dying of. She's just dying. And it turns out she set this whole thing up that, she knew that Michelle Williams was the person in charge of the orphanage. That's why it was a demand that she had to come, because she wanted to set it up that the daughter she had raised all these years would have a mother, even though she's a married woman now, would have a mother, and that I guess in some weird twisted corner of her mind that her husband would have a wife, because they have twin sons as well. So I guess she wanted to make sure they had a mother and all this shit. So this is all some well-meaning Lady Macbethian plan by Julianne Moore to get Michelle Williams there and have a substitute ready to take over her family. So right there, I'm going to talk about what's good about this movie, because there's a lot good, but I want to talk about right now one of the things that really kind of, I think, works against the film. I think there is too much going on plot-wise. Either one of these movies or ideas would have made a good movie in and of itself. I thought the movie was really interesting and really different with the first twist that it had, that the daughter was not, Michelle Williams was the girl's mother. I thought that was a good enough story. So now the story can be about this family, trying to readjust and, this new element into it from both sides. So I feel like that when they added this extra twist of her dying, it stopped feeling like I was watching a really interesting take on, family relationships, and instead I was now watching an episode of 90210 circa, 1996. Oh, another plot twist. The other thing that I kind of had a problem with in this is, boy, poor Billy Caldrup, man, because he was also the husband in Where'd You Go, Bernadette. So it's like it's like the second week in a row I've seen him as the husband of, he kind of gets the shaft here in terms of story. The story begins to focus more on Julianne Moore and Michelle Williams, and he is kind of left to the side. He has a few scenes, a few things going on, but mostly it's the two of them, and their various relationships with the daughter, and he kind of feels like any real revelations or resolutions or whatever he might have with this other woman in his life and everything is kind of shunted to the side. He doesn't feel like he gets to have as much of a character arc, which is bizarre when you're talking about, a love square and one of the corners isn't getting any real time. It's not that he doesn't get anything to do, it's just I don't think he's given enough. And the other thing, and this is just a me thing maybe, is I was kind of hoping that there would be a moment where he kind of says to Julianne Moore, I don't need you to set things up so that I'm taken care of after you're gone. I'm an adult, but that never happens. She treats him like a child. I need to make sure you're set up and you're taken care of. You're going to have to, at the scene, there's a scene at the very end, which I'm going to talk about again here in a minute, where he's saying, oh, and by the way, the school called and this and this and this about the boys. And she's like, why are you telling me this? you're going to have to learn to deal with this stuff on your own. And it's like, okay, where did that shit come from? Because it was never implied that he didn't know how to handle things, or that she had to handle everything for him like he was a 2-year-old. But that's the way she kind of talks to him, and that's the way he's kind of treated narratively throughout the film, like he's a 2-year-old that needs to be led by the hand. So this all sounds, I'm kind of hitting the negative first. And I don't, it's just kind of the way the conversation has, evolved this time. Because this is not a bad movie. These are just elements that kind of dragged it down for me. If you want to know the truth, I think this was a pretty solid film from a lot of standpoints. First of all, as I said originally, the story is really well done. Even with the extra soap opera-y plot twist that eventually kind of comes through. Well, they're both kind of soap opera-y, but, the extra one. I still think the film really plays it close to the vest and really plays it grounded. There's a lot of neat themes that are going on here. Not only the changing family. There's a class thing going on. Michelle Williams walks through the entire first part of the movie with like a permanent snit on her face. She sees the luxury the rich people live in, and oh, how terrible, because all this could feed 1,000 children in India and all this shit. And the film narratively is trying to always make you believe that Julianne Moore wants something really nefarious. She's really, again, like she's the Lady Macbeth, and she's, the sweet mom face she puts on is actually just a mask, and she really wants something really horrible. And it turns out she does, but it's something to take care of her family. There's a really good scene with our two leads, Michelle Williams and Julianne Moore, where they're kind of yelling at each other, and Michelle Williams is like, you think just because you're rich, I'm going to get down, pardon my language, I'm just quoting the film, I'm going to get down and lick your asshole. And Julianne Moore comes back with, and you think just because you're an idealist that you don't hold any responsibility for abandoning your kid. And I like that it was not a thing going, rich people boo, poor people yay. It was like, that's not what this is about, and the fact that you're making it about that is taking away from the actual point. So I liked that a lot. I also feel, as I said, like right at the beginning, this film's bread and butter is really emotional, and really, this film has a good understanding of human emotion. And not a lot of films like this can lay claim to that. A lot of films like this have an idea of how people act, but don't actually portray people reacting in natural ways. They react in dramatically interesting ways. But a lot of things in this film, they do what seems logical and natural. For instance, okay, so we find out later Julianne Moore knew the whole time, but at the very beginning, they're hinting, of course, at the past relationship between Michelle Williams and Billy Caldrup there, and it's one of those things you're like, oh, he's going to hide this from his wife, and he's going to do this. No, he tells her right away. When the whole thing about the daughter comes out, Michelle Williams says, well, you're going to tell her, or I will. And you're like, oh shit, so now they're going to do this whole thing about, how are they going to, about lying to her. Nope, tell her right away. And they, like I say, they deal with the fallout like you would in real life. And yet they keep real life dramatically interesting. They don't have to manufacture conflict. The conflict is already there. They don't have to feel like they have to pull cheap tricks to create it. Acting-wise, across the board, the film is really, really good. Again, I like Billy Caldrup a lot. He's a very underrated actor. And I've liked a lot of things he's in. I feel he's underutilized here. He's always playing kind of the hapless, put upon, man-child, but not like a man-child like, any father in any cheap sitcom. I always have to give Michelle Williams a lot of credit because of that whole sorority and fraternity of late 90s, early 2000s teen stars. She's one of the only ones that is still actively kind of working, and the stuff she's working on is not like Lifetime original movies and shit. She's like really doing some hard-hitting acting there, and like so many of her peers can't say that. I mean, I was thrilled to see Neve Campbell pop back up in that piece of shit rock movie about the skyscraper. Other ones like Matthew Lillard, the only thing they claim to is they're the new voice of Shaggy. Not that I have anything against Matthew Lillard being the voice of Shaggy. He does a great job. But yeah, she's actually still, out there. And again, her name's not above a lot of titles. Nothing like stars her. But she puts in solid performances. But I gotta say, this is one of those times I'm gonna eat my words, and I'm gonna eat some crow, and I'm gonna say it tastes like ice cream. I lost a ton of respect for Julianne Moore after Gloria Bell. Now I know that's horrible to write an actor off after one bad movie, but I thought that character and that film were just so atrocious, and she was just so bad in it, and I was just like, oh man, God. But I must bow to her feet and kiss her feet and beg for forgiveness for my ignorance, because boy howdy is she given a master class in acting in this film. Boy to the howdy is she just nailing it, and nailing it so beautifully. Again, the understated moments, understated acting is what makes this film work, and why I'm willing to forgive so much of it, because boy, when it wants to hit you, it does. And she is subtle, she's natural, she's real in this. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is the best scene in the movie. Ironically, the best scene in the movie to me is, a scene that would not have come about if not for that, secondary plot twist that I was so against. But she goes through this whole movie. We see her as a fucking, boss of a multi-million-dollar company, a competent mother, a loving wife. We see her through all of this. She's the rock, kind of helping her daughter through things. When, she finds out she's dying, she sets this whole plan in motion. She's so calculated. We see all these different facets to her. And then at the very end, her very last scene is her with Billy Coldrup in their bedroom. That scene I was talking about before, about, him saying, the boys' school called. And she's like, well, why are you telling me this? And she breaks down. Now that and she even says it, you can see it. It's such good writing and acting. The scene is paced so well, and she's just, I got it all. I got it fixed. I fixed everything. Everything's fine now. And she realizes that she did what she set out to do, and she breaks down, and she is just bawling. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. There's so much more I want to do. I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. And boy fucking howdy is it powerful. So again, I tip my hat. I beg forgiveness for ever doubting her. Gloria Bell is probably still going to end up on my worst of list for the year, so can't change everything. Can't change the past. But this performance reestablishes this is why she's one of the best. And don't let one bad movie color that legacy. So yeah, I think on the whole everything evens out. I think the movie could have been better. It's not bad. It could have been better. I got a little sick of, while I applaud Michelle Williams' character or in her acting, I got a little sick of her character. Her character was a little too snotty and holier than that. I think she could have dealt with a few more moments of being brought down to earth a little bit. Like, you're not so high and fucking mighty, so stop acting like it. I also felt like the daughter, about whom the whole conflict kind of arose, I felt like that character was a bit wishy-washy. She wasn't terrible, and the actor was very good. I don't know the actor's name in this instance. They were both good, but the character, I don't know, it just started to rub me the wrong way after a while. But, you know, I think the film just suffers from trying to do a little too much, but what it does well. So, as I said at the very beginning, final grade for After the Wedding is a B-. I think it's worth seeing. It's, again, if nothing else, for its the restraint and the trust that the director/writer had in the material and had in the performance, that it didn't feel like it had to rely on a lot of manufactured drama, and when it did feel like it had to do it, at least it did it well. So sometimes that's all you can ask. So anyway, 3-day weekend, yay! A lot of weird films out this week. A lot of weird films, like ones I heard of like a day ago, and now they're out. You're like, oh, okay. So I don't know. We might check one or two of them out, see what's cooking, see what's going on. But yeah. So as always, thanks for watching, and drive safe. And I will see you at the movies.